David Langston had always believed in love. The kind that was patient, kind, and selfless. The kind he thought he had found in Clara. They had met 3 years ago in Florence, where she worked as a gallery assistant and he was on a business trip to invest in Italian art. Clara was vibrant, passionate, and attentive. David was drawn to her like a moth to a flame. A whirlwind romance followed. After only 5 months of dating, they married in a modest ceremony. Clara had insisted on it being small, claiming she didn't care for extravagance. David saw it as a sign of genuine affection. But wealth changes people, or maybe it reveals who they truly are. A year into the marriage, David started hearing whispers. "Clara's always at that boutique, using your name to get discounts," his driver mentioned one day. "I saw her having lunch with a man, intimately," said Rachel, David's assistant, hesitantly. David looked up from his desk, his expression tight. "What do you mean by intimately, Rachel?" Rachel shifted uncomfortably, clutching the file she had come in to deliver. "They were at Lucille, that place by the harbor. I only went there to pick up lunch for a client meeting. I saw them seated near the window." She hesitated, then added, "She was leaning in close, laughing in a way I've never seen her laugh with you," touching his wrist, brushing her hair behind her ear every few seconds. It was the way women behave when they're emotionally involved. David's jaw clenched. "Did she see you?" "I don't think so. I left quickly. I wasn't sure if I should even say anything." He sat back, staring at nothing. "No, you did the right thing." Rachel paused, then said quietly, "I know this isn't easy to hear. But I care about you, David. I've worked beside you for 5 years. I've seen how much you love her. That's why I hesitated. But you deserve the truth." David nodded slowly. "Thank you, Rachel." As she turned to leave, he murmured, more to himself than to her, "It's just, lately, she's been asking about my estate, my business holdings, the trust fund. She never cared before. Now it's all she wants to talk about." Rachel hesitated at the door. "Be careful, David. Sometimes, love wears a mask." When she left, silence wrapped around him like a noose. His mind echoed with Clara's recent questions. "Do you have Clara listed as your primary beneficiary? When do the shares from the Italian investment mature? You never told me who controls your estate in the event of incapacity." David couldn't bring himself to confront Clara without evidence. That's when a dangerous thought took root. What if he tested her? If her love could endure through hardship, through blindness, then it was real. But if not? A week later, David staged a car accident. His driver, doctor, and lawyer were the only ones in on the plan. The hospital played along. David had suffered optic nerve damage. The doctors told Clara the injury was likely permanent. Her reaction was swift and convincing. "Oh God, David," she sobbed at his hospital bed. "I thought I lost you." He touched her hand gently. "They say I may never see again." She sniffled and kissed his forehead. "I don't care. I'll be your eyes." In that moment, David almost believed her again. But he needed time. Back home, Clara initially doted on him. She cooked his favorite meals, read to him, and walked him to the garden. But within 2 weeks, cracks appeared. She started leaving early in the mornings. She stopped joining him for meals. One day, he overheard her on the phone. "I can't keep pretending, Leo," she whispered. "He's blind now. It won't take long. Once I'm named on the will, we're done." David sat frozen on the couch, his knuckles turning white. "Leo? Who was Leo?" That evening, she came home smelling of expensive cologne and wine. "Had dinner with Lily," she said quickly. "Lily?" he asked, his voice flat. "Yes. You know how she always wants to talk about her problems." She kissed his cheek. "I'm so tired. Good night." The next few weeks were a slow descent into despair. Clara began hosting friends at home, mostly when she assumed David was asleep or tuned out. One night, David overheard a conversation with her friend Naomi. "I'm just biding my time," Clara said, sipping wine. "He's barely a man now. Helpless. Isn't that cruel?" Naomi asked, half laughing. "He'd do the same if the roles were reversed." Besides, love isn't always enough. Security matters. David's chest tightened. Everything was unraveling. The woman he married wasn't the same woman standing in his living room, plotting with laughter. 3 months after the fake accident, David sat in his study, replaying Clara's betrayal in his mind. He decided to end the charade. The next morning, he called his lawyer and instructed him to amend the will. Clara would receive nothing. He also asked for a private investigator to follow her for the final proof. That afternoon, Clara came home humming. "I bought you that jazz album you love," she said, placing a vinyl record on the table. David smiled faintly. "You've been so kind to me, Clara." She paused. "Of course, what else would I be?" He turned his head toward her. "Do you ever wonder if you'd love me the same if I were poor?" She laughed lightly. "Don't be silly." He nodded. "Right." The private investigator's report arrived the next day. Photos of Clara and Leo, kissing at a hotel, laughing on a yacht, shopping hand in hand. David called Clara into the living room, his voice composed but flat. "I need to talk to you," he said, sitting upright in the armchair near the fireplace. Clara walked in, scrolling on her phone, her heels clicking against the polished hardwood. She barely glanced at him. "What is it?" "I'm in the middle of something." David's expression didn't change. "I went to the hospital today." That caught her attention. She looked up abruptly, alarm flashing in her eyes. "What? You didn't say anything earlier. What happened?" "They ran more tests," he said, slowly rising from his chair. His tone remained calm, too calm. "It's a miracle, really." He turned fully to face her and looked directly into her eyes. "I can see again." The blood drained from Clara's face. She staggered a step back, her voice barely a whisper. What do you mean?" "You were blind." "I was never blind," David said coolly. "Not truly. It was all a test." Her eyes widened, horror dawning on her face. "A test?" He nodded. "I started hearing things, Clara. Things I didn't want to believe. Whispers. Comments from people I trusted. My own assistant saw you having lunch with a man, intimately. The staff mentioned how much you've been spending, how curious you've become about my estate, insurance, my assets. And then there was the sudden interest in my health and what happens to everything if I were to disappear." She shook her head furiously. "That's not, David, that's not fair." "So I had to know," he interrupted. "I had to see if your love for me was real. So I staged the car accident. I told everyone I'd gone blind. I wanted to see how you'd treat me when I had nothing to offer but myself." Clara dropped her phone. It clattered against the marble floor. "I wanted to believe in you, Clara," David continued, his voice rising now, trembling with the emotion he'd bottled for months. "God knows I did. I was hoping every day that the rumors were lies. That you'd stay. That you'd care for me, not out of obligation, but love. But you failed. You failed the one test that mattered." She took a step forward, eyes filling with tears. "Please, David, I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I never expected any of this. I didn't know how to handle seeing you like that, helpless." "No," he cut her off sharply. "You weren't scared. You were opportunistic. You left me sitting in silence, night after night, while you slipped away to some hotel with Leo. I heard you on the phone. He's blind now, soon I'll get the inheritance. That's what you said." Clara's voice broke. I didn't mean it like that." "Yes, you did," he said, his voice now cold steel. "You played the perfect wife until it got boring. Until you thought you could cash in on your performance. But you forgot something important." He stepped closer, his eyes locked on hers. "I'm not blind. Not anymore. And now I see you clearly." Clara crumpled to her knees, sobbing. "Please don't do this. We can fix it. I can be better." David stared down at her. "The lawyer will be in touch. You're getting nothing. The house? Not yours. The accounts? Frozen. My love? Gone." She looked up, mascara streaking her cheeks. "You tricked me." He didn't blink. "No, Clara. I gave you the chance to be honest. To be real. But you chose greed." He turned and walked toward the door. "Goodbye, Clara." And without another word, David walked out of the house, leaving behind not just a marriage, but an illusion he had once called love. Weeks later, David sat in the same garden where he once waited for Clara's daily walks. The air was crisp. For the first time in months, he felt peace. Rachel joined him, bringing tea. "You okay?" she asked softly. He nodded. "I see more clearly now than I ever have." "You're stronger than most," she said. David looked at her, eyes full of quiet gratitude. "I had to lose my sight to see the truth. Funny, isn't it?" Rachel smiled. "Sometimes love blinds us more than darkness ever could." He nodded slowly, watching the sunlight dance across the pond. Clara was gone. The illusion was over. And maybe, just maybe, there was still hope for a love built on something real. Enjoyed the video? Like, share, and let us know your thoughts in the comments.